Ready to dive into some seriously murky waters with me today?
Let's do it.
We're going to be unpacking the classic trolley problem and the historical legal case of asterisk, the Queen versus Dudley and Stevens asterisk.
Oh, I like where this is going already.
It's going to be a fascinating journey into how we make moral judgments, when the stakes are really, really high.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Even life or death. The trolley problem might seem like something you'd only encounter in a philosophy class, right? But it actually reflects these dilemmas we kind of face all the time, even in our own lines of work.
Oh, absolutely.
So let's set the scene a little bit. Picture a runaway trolley.
Okay.
Barreling down the tracks, right? About to hit 5 unsuspecting workers. Now you have the power to flip a switch, right?
Yeah.
Diverting the trolley onto a side track, BUT, there's 1 worker on that track. Do you sacrifice 1 to save 5?
Always a tough decision.
It's a tough call, right? What's so interesting is that most people, when they hear this, they lean toward this utilitarian approach. They're choosing the option that minimizes harm, right?
Right.
It's tragic to lose 1 life, but losing 5 feels even worse. And that brings us to the, I think, fascinating world of consequentialist moral reasoning.
It's a big one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is the idea that the morality of an action is judged solely by its outcome. Did it lead to more good than bad?
Right. So utilitarianism is a really common type of consequentialism. It basically says we should aim to maximize happiness for the greatest number of people. The classic, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few.
Exactly.
Or the one, yeah.
Okay, so hold on. Because the trolley problem takes a sharp turn.
Oh.
It makes things even more complex.
Oh, no.
This time, instead of a switch, you're on a bridge overlooking the tracks. Next to you, a rather large person, if they were to fall onto the tracks, well, that would stop the trolley. 5 lives saved, 1 tragically lost.
Wow.
This scenario highlights how our gut reactions, I think, can clash with logic.
Totally, yeah.
Even though the outcome's the same, 1 life or 5, the idea of pushing someone to their death feels instinctively wrong. It just does.
Yeah, you're no longer just diverting a trolley. You're actually using a person as the thing to stop.
Makes you really question those lines, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
And this tension between our gut feelings and the quote-unquote greater good is at the heart of so much, I think, ethical debate.
For sure.
We see this tension, I think, really, really vividly illustrated in the real-life legal case of asterisk, the Queen versus Dudley and Stevens asterisk.
Okay.
This 19th century British case, it revolves around a shipwreck and just this horrifying dilemma faced by the survivors.
Oh, wow.
4 men found themselves adrift in this tiny lifeboat. With them, 2 cans of preserved turnips, no water.
Oh, my gosh.
Their situation was desperate. Days turned into weeks. Their hope began to dwindle right along with their supplies.
Yeah.
One of them, a young cabin boy named Richard Parker, he was in particularly bad shape, already weak from drinking seawater.
That's awful.
Faced with their own imminent deaths, the ship's captain, Dudley, proposed a lottery. A drawing of lots to decide who would be sacrificed to save the others. 1 crew member refused to participate, but Dudley and Stevens made the agonizing decision to kill the cabin boy.
Wow.
They argued it was an act of necessity, that his death would give the 3 of them a fighting chance. And survive, they did.
Wow.
For 4 days, they survived on the body and blood of the cabin boy. On the 24th day of their ordeal, a ship appeared, rescuing them.
Oh, my goodness.
But their ordeal wasn't over. Upon their return to England, they were arrested, and their gruesome actions were put in trial. This case, much like the trolley problem, it sparked a firestorm of debate,
Yeah.
Was what they did morally justified? Was it an act of murder, plain and simple, or was it this desperate act of survival under just unimaginable circumstances? And it's easy to judge, right, from the comfort of our armchairs, but this case forces us to confront the rawness of human nature when pushed to the absolute limit.
For sure.
And it gets even more complex, I think, when we consider the idea of consent. What if, before doing anything, Dudley and Stevens had asked for Richard Parker's consent? Would that have changed things?
That's a great question. Yeah, that's a whole other can of worms.
Right.
The consent conundrum.
It cuts right to the heart of how we view, autonomy and morality.
Totally.
Does consent have the power to make a wrong act permissible?
It's a huge question.
Philosophers have been wrestling with this, for ages. On the one hand, if someone willingly agrees to be sacrificed for the greater good, don't they have that right? But then we have to consider the circumstances. Was Parker truly free to give consent in that life or death scenario,
Right.
trapped in a tiny boat with dwindling hope? Or was there an element of coercion, given, like, the power dynamics at play?
Absolutely. Yeah, you're totally right. It's not a clear-cut situation at all.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like trying to untangle like a giant fishing net, you know? Every knot seems connected to another knot. Let's say, for the sake of argument, that Parker, weak, delirious, had given his consent. Would that be enough to morally justify their actions? Even then, there's another layer to consider. Remember that lottery
Right.
that they were going to do? Some people believe that a fair procedure, agreed upon beforehand, makes the outcome more acceptable, even if that outcome is morally troubling. It's like the randomness, that roll of the dice, somehow lessens the responsibility for the outcome, even when the stakes are life and death.
Yeah.
It makes you think about why we place so much emphasis on, like, procedures, even in these extreme situations.
Totally. It's like we try to remove the human element almost by putting in a system.
Yeah.
Because then it's not me. It's the procedure, you know?
Yeah. It's fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's as if having that system, a set of rules, helps us kind of distance ourselves from the weight of the decision. But of course, there's another side to this.
Right.
Some argue that what Dudley and Stevens did was inherently wrong, regardless of consent or any lottery.
Right. They believe some acts, like taking a life, are simply wrong. Full stop.
Right. Like, there's just no justifying it. Some things are just fundamentally wrong.
And that raises another question. Where do these moral absolutes come from?
Right.
Are they hardwired into us?
Mm-hmm.
Are they shaped by society?
Right.
Or do they come from something else entirely?
It's a huge question.
It's a question that has no easy answers.
Yeah.
It continues to be debated even to this day. It's like we've been kind of weaving our way through this labyrinth of moral dilemmas.
Totally, yeah.
From that thought experiment of the trolley problem to, like, the really harrowing realities of the asterisk Queen versus Dudley and Stevens asterisk case, and along the way we've bumped up against these big questions.
You really have, yeah.
Of necessity, right?
Right. Consent, fair procedures, and those actions that some believe are just categorically wrong. What strikes me is how there's, like, no easy answer.
Yeah.
There's no simple solution. It's messy.
Right.
And complex, just like real life.
Exactly. And that's what's so fascinating about this. Like, this is why I love moral philosophy, because it's these gray areas.
Right.
It's not clear cut. There's not a right or wrong answer a lot of the time. It's, well, it depends. You know?
Right. And that's what makes it so compelling. It forces us to confront, like, those really gray areas of human existence,
Like,
those spaces where those, like, clear-cut answers, they just disappear.
For sure.
It's easy to get, I think, lost in the hypotheticals.
Okay.
But these aren't just abstract thought experiments. These thought experiments, they reflect real dilemmas that people face.
They do.
The struggle of right and wrong in these extreme circumstances.
Absolutely. And that's why I think it's so important to grapple with these questions. Like, on the one hand, yeah, we can get lost in the thought experiment, but on the other hand, this is reflecting real human struggles. So it's important for us to kind of look inward at our own moral compass, you know,
Right.
even when it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Because as we've seen, like, that line between right and wrong, it can get really blurry really quickly.
Yeah.
Especially when it's life or death.
Yeah. So where does this all leave us after this deep dive? I mean, we've journeyed from that runaway trolley to a lifeboat adrift at sea,
Right.
unpacking, I think, a lot of ethical baggage along the way. We've seen how, like, focusing on the greater good, that consequentialist thinking, it can clash with this idea that some actions they're just plain wrong.
Right.
No matter the outcome. We've pondered the weight of consent,
Yeah.
asking if it can truly exist in these life or death scenarios, and the appeal of fair procedures, even when the stakes are just unimaginable. And maybe, just maybe, the most important thing we take away from all of this is the understanding that there are no easy answers.
Right.
You know, because when it comes to like the ethics of taking a life, the only certainty is that lingering echo of questions that have resonated, I think, throughout history, right?
Absolutely. And that's, I think, the point we leave you on today, right? It's, think about this. If you were in Dudley and Stevens' situation, right? If you were on that lifeboat, could you say with certainty what you would do?
Right.
And how would you justify that choice? Not just to other people, but to yourself.
That's something to ponder, isn't it?
It really is.
Yeah.